Hey everybody, this video is a little bit different. I'm recording this live on stream on twitch.tv/NeedOnTheRocks. The link is in the description below. This particular episode of the campaign diaries we wrote, recorded, and edited all live on stream. So if you want to catch content like that, check out the stream or catch my main channel where this entire VOD went up in the description below. When last we left our heroes, Sven, Mose, Anton, and Navarra were sailing with the fallen knight Sir Matthew to the capital city of Vitalitas to inform the king that his entire kingdom of Vitalitas was in grave danger under the looming threat of a Gnoll warband and a shadow dragon. On their way, they came upon merchants being raided by pirates, a classic low to mid-level D&D encounter, especially in my campaigns, which tend to become naval focused for some reason or another. The party absolutely annihilated the threat of the pirates, and they claimed the pirate ship for themselves, which had them jumping for joy when they realized that they could sell the video for like 20,000 gold pieces. We started this next session and it opened with them realizing that Sir Matthew believed that a good portion of the cut of the loot was his, seeing as it was his ship and his crew that interrupted this pirate encounter. Party complained, but they had very little negotiating power, but they ended up with still a good chunk of money, like over 1,000 gold pieces apiece, which is kind of ridiculous for 4th level. Matthew had begun the adventure kind of reluctant and jaded, but had since had a strange change of heart. It seemed that the excitement of adventuring again and getting sick loot had him on a high he hadn't been on in a long time. He even offered, and in fact insisted, that he go in the stead of the party to inform the king of the looming danger. Party was not a fan of this idea. Why, they argued, had they come all this way if they were not to speak to the king themselves? So Matthew had a change of heart and said, fine, if you all want to take care of it yourselves, I'll just hop on my ship and you can take care of it. It always seems that by level 5, my D&D parties are always dealing with kings and talking with nation leaders, and it definitely speaks to the power dynamics that go on in my campaigns. They're pretty heavily skewed from what is usually expected from D&D campaigns. Party entered the castle and spoke with the king regent. The true king died mysteriously recently and had no living heir, so he was succeeded by the top knight in his king's guard. This guy used to be something of a hand of the king, if you will. The king regent took the matter of the looming dragon very seriously and commanded the court wizard to inform all of the nearby cities of the threat through magical means. He told the party to further investigate and find the dragon's location so that they could take the fight to the dragon and the warband instead of risking the city and its innocence. Party met with Arnulf the court wizard afterwards to see if they could shake him down for magic items. He was able to provide a decanter of endless water, so they would no longer have to forage for water on the road, and a rope of climbing, which would definitely become useful a bit later. They showed Arnulf a map they had shaken off the pirates. On it was marked a strange location in the Woods of Despair called the Cave of Bad Dreams. Arnulf recoiled at the name and explained that it was a legendary location said to house great treasure and even rarer dangers. The party deduced, correctly I'd say, that they were incredibly underleveled to be taking on a shadow dragon and a warband of gnolls. So they decided that the extra XP and some dope magic items from looting this dungeon might be in their best interest. While the party is under level 5, which is considered tier 1 of play, I have them roll regularly for random encounters when traveling through the wilderness. I was really excited to get to the dungeon I had prepared, so when they rolled up a random encounter, I gave them something that would be a seeming threat, but really wouldn't take very long to deal with, so I threw at them a basilisk. Now, basilisks don't really hit very hard, and they don't have a whole lot of HP, but if you've read HP, you would know that they turn their subjects to stone. So Mose was almost petrified, but then they quickly hit the monster till they died. It was a pretty cool encounter. They arrived at the cave and were met with a secret door with the inscription of an eyeball on it. Arnulf had informed them that the password to get into the cave was to speak the name, the Cave of Bad Dreams, in Draconic. They passed through and entered what seemed like the only room of the dungeon, It was filled with treasure and zombie gnolls that ambushed them. After dealing with the zombies, they realized that the treasure was fake and the walls were illusory. Behind one of the walls, they found a strange vertical tunnel. It was a bit like a cylinder. It was completely cleanly carved out and went straight down into the tunnels below. They used their trusty rope of climbing to descend deeper and found themselves in the main atrium of the dungeon. At this time during that session, it was starting to get late and we decided that we wanted to call it there. So I gave them a hell of a cliffhanger. From another completely vertical shaft rises what appears to be a beholder. Now, my players are reasonably experienced and knowledgeable of D&D lore, and Larry immediately recognizes this as Beholder and knew that Beholders are in fact challenge rating 13. Now, CR 13 means that a Beholder is considered an average challenge for a level 13 party. My players are level 4. So we come back the next week and Larry has decided there is no way that I was going to throw a CR 13 at them. So he's determined that it must be some sort of lesser beholder or a baby beholder or something. And he was right. In fact, it's a goth beholder or whatever it's called. It's a lesser beholder, still of CR 6, but they held their own against it pretty well and actually sent it running pretty quickly. But their hearts sank when, during its retreat, it let out the most terrifying screech they had ever heard. Dada! There was a collective gasp around the table and Larry's head hit the game board. They heard the roar of a mighty monster come down from the vertical tunnel that the goth had just retreated down, and they decided it was time to run. Only one complication. They had taken their rope down and their only means of escape was a completely vertical tunnel heading straight up that had completely sheer walls. It was going to take some finagling to climb it, and time to finagle they didn't have. They decided their best bet was to find another tunnel and descend deeper into the dungeon. There they did battle with a gnoll priest. They determined that the priest had been held captive here to serve the beholders and raise the zombies they found at the beginning of the dungeon. After slaying the priest, they realized the room they were in was a complete dead end, and Daddy quickly approached. They drew their weapons and prepared to do battle with a CR-13 when they were met with a horrible stench. What appeared before them was some sort of beholder zombie. The goth had used the gnoll priest to raise its then dead maker to serve as its servant. The party still doesn't know exactly how this arrangement came to be, but something tells me they'll find out before long. They beat the zombie beholder, but just by the skin of their teeth. Zombie beholders are interesting creatures because they're only challenge rating 5, mainly because of its terrible action economy and low intelligence. However, one of its actions is the disintegrate spell, which can easily one-shot a 5th, 6th, or even 7th level character and completely turn them to ash. Clearly, it's meant as a CR5 to serve as a minion in a much higher level encounter rather than as a boss monster for a low level encounter. But that didn't stop me, and the high risk encounter was worth it for the high reward that the dungeon held deep in its catacombs. Sven, Hunter's character, even took a disintegration ray and lived. He now worships the god of fate and luck. Upon slaying the zombie, the party tracked down the goth, who was hidden in its treasure pile weeping for its life. It negotiated away its greatest treasure, a small, nonchalant chest with the engraving of a dragon on it. It said, "Let me go and you can have this, or I will destroy it." The players kept their promise and let the beholder escape, and took the chest. I had this chest as a prop for the adventure. Isaiah opens it and reveals that inside is a deck of playing cards. Larry's head once again slammed on the game table, and Hunter said, "Are you really ready to ruin your entire campaign?" They knew, as you might, that this was the deck of many things, a powerful and infamous magic item notorious for completely throwing characters and entire campaigns off the rails. The concept is simple. The character declares how many cards they will draw from the deck. They must draw that many cards, and once they have drawn, they may never draw again. Each card in the real life deck corresponds to a card in the game deck that has different magical effects. It ranges all the way from granting game-breaking powers to... Let me just tell you what each member drew. Actually quite hilarious to watch. At first, nobody wanted to draw from the deck. Then Hunter said, wait, this was the treasure. This is all we have, but this could give us the strength we need to fight this dragon. Which is true. There's some stuff in there that could prove quite useful in fighting even powerful beings as a dragon. Larry decides that Anton will draw first and will draw just 2 cards from the deck. The first he draws is Vizier, something like that. This card grants him special knowledge beyond the realms of mortal understanding. I told him that between now and a year from then, in game, he may ask me, the Dungeon Master, any question regarding the game, and I would answer it truthfully and usefully. Ivara said, hey, that's pretty cool, and Anton said, yes, but now let me draw my second card. He then drew the Fool, which made him lose 10,000 XP, and then draw a third card against his wishes. The third card was the card I didn't think would actually crop up. It's perhaps the most terrible card in the deck. It is called the Void. Anton's soul was wrenched out of him and then held in a secret location, guarded by a powerful being until the end of time or until the soul is retrieved. This pretty much meant the end of Anton, but stay tuned. Now, if I saw my friend get his soul sucked out of him and then pass out in front of me, I would not be drawing from that deck. So naturally, Mose says, I'll take 3. Mose draws his first card, Gem. 50,000 gold pieces worth of gems appear at his feet. This dwarf, already high on slaying one of the most legendary creatures in existence, is now planning his retirement. But he still had 2 cards to draw. His second card, Balance, changes him from a chaotic good dwarf to a lawful evil bastard. Between that and the huge treasure, you can probably expect it to look something like this.
By my life, I will not part with a single coin. Not one piece of it.
So with his retirement plans now shifting to murder his adventure mates to keep their shares of the treasure, he draws his third card, Donjon, which is the second worst card in the deck of many things. And similarly to Void, it takes you and throws you into prison on the astral plane where you remain for the rest of existence or until you are found. Now, after seeing half my party get wiped, I definitely would not be taking any cards from the deck. So naturally, Sven says, I will also take 3. Sven draws much more reasonable cards. The first is Star, which lets him enhance his ability scores. The second is Throne, which gives him an abandoned keep somewhere in no man's land in my world. And the third was Rogue, which turned an undisclosed NPC against him. More on that one will be revealed at a later session. Navara said, okay, well, his weren't so bad, but that means there are fewer good ones in the deck, so I'll only take 2. She draws the card Knight, which grants her a completely loyal servant in the form of a 4th level knight. He now travels with them. He's like a member of the party. Afterwards, she draws Uriel, or however you pronounce that one. It bestows a curse upon her that gives her a -2 to saving throws for the rest of her existence. But she feels for the knight that it's pretty even trade. With the 50,000 gold pieces left behind by Mose, the remaining 2 decide that they are going to go on a quest to save Anton and find his soul and restore his body. Isaiah decides, screw Mose, I'll just make a new character. So let this serve as a cautionary tale. If you're a DM and you introduce the deck of many things, especially at low level, you will most certainly change your campaign forever. But it'll probably be a blast. If you're a player and you discover the deck, draw at your own risk. All right, so this episode had me speak a lot about dungeons, dangerous encounters, and high-level magic items. And I feel that those topics all need their own video, so expect me to speak more about those in the near future. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel to catch the full sessions of our campaign recorded for your viewing pleasure. Deck of Many session will be up very soon, and until next time, go roll those neat 20s.